Good day and welcome to our webinar today. Discover how Micro Focus, Platespin, along with Atos, work together to help their customers on their journey to the cloud. We appreciate you being here today with us. Okay, and today's webinar is brought to you not only by weve, but by Micro Focus, as well as their partner, Atos, and we're happy to have everyone here. Today's speakers, first we have Stefan Rohrbrecht, who is the Atos Cloud Enterprise Solution Expert. And Stefan has quite a bit of experience with Atos, started there in 1999, so we're very excited to have his expertise. His aim is to help customers on their journey to the cloud. Along with joining us with Stefan is Joe DeBeer from Micro Focus, Director of Product Management, who joined Novell in Belgium back in 2004, which is now part of Micro Focus, and actually then moved to the United States in 2014 to join the product management team there in Utah. So he is responsible for developing a diverse set of products that Micro Focus customers and partners use to manage their servers and applications. And they're both going to share a little bit more about their expertise here when they come on. So thank you for joining us today. Just a little bit of housekeeping in the beginning. Go ahead to the next slide. This is a session that will be recorded, the live session. So the great thing is you can reference that down the road. The on-demand recording, slide deck, as well as the Q&A will be posted on the weve website, visible to all of our members. And you'll actually get a link once all of that is in place so that you can easily access it. Okay, and next slide. And we definitely want you to engage on this webinar. So please take a moment to locate your questions pane on your control panel. This is a picture of the control panel that should be usually in the upper right-hand corner of your screen. So to submit a question, make sure the question pane is expanded and type it in and then click send. And we'll get to those at the end of the presentation. Okay, next slide. I'm going to turn it over first to Stefan and welcome them to speak to you today.
So, hello everyone. Really excited to be here. I'm Stefan Riebroek. I'd like to tell you a little bit about Atos and Micro Focus, how we have joined forces together with one of their toolings, Platespin Migrate, and how we help our customers with their journey to the cloud. A brief introduction of myself. Like already said, working in the IT since '99. I started as a Unix administrator. Somehow I got lucky and I ended up on a VMware course where I was introduced to virtualization. And from there I moved on to data center transformations. I'm based in the Netherlands. And I'm currently working as a senior expert within Atos Netherlands. And my current role is an ICT consultant, where I drive a team, an onshore and offshore team. So Atos is a global-wide company. With this team, we're running projects where we migrate servers and applications seamlessly between any IT environment. For the last few years, we are mainly involved in Azure, Google Cloud Platform, and AWS migrations. So my counterpart today will be Joe DeBeer. Joe, you're here?
Yes, hello everyone. I'm also very excited to be here. I also kind of started my career in 1999. Yeah. So I guess we're roughly the same age. I worked for a couple of other companies first. Sun Microsystems was one of them. And in 2004, I indeed joined Novell. And Novell was then later purchased by the Attachmate Group, which then later merged with, or was purchased by Micro Focus. So that's how I ended up with the company. And throughout my whole career, at the company, I've been mostly doing product management, mostly focusing on products that do something with the cloud. So this is the product today that we're discussing, or that I'm going to discuss, right? I'm of course here to give the product angle to the whole thing, is related to cloud migrations, but I'm also involved with products that do cloud management, so a cloud management platform. So anything that has to do with the cloud. And today I'm really excited to tell you guys a little bit about what Platespin is, how it works, and we're going to just spend a couple of slides on that in a minute. So thank you, Stefan.
Okay, thank you, Joe. I would like to tell you a little bit about Atos in general. Like I said, we're a worldwide company. We're quite large. I think most of people know us about Olympic and the Paralympic Games, where we sponsor the event with all the IT stuff around that. We are a global leader in cloud and digital workspace. Like I said, I'm more into the cloud. Yeah, we generate a lot of revenue. We hold a lot of digital certifications. Yeah, and we're based worldwide. I think we are covered in 73 countries around the world, as I believe. A little bit about Atos. It's supported by strong expertise in all practices. To give you a little background where I am working in. So Atos is divided in divisions, and within those divisions, there is on your left the Cloud Enterprise Solutions or Cloud Enterprise Services. That's where I will be going. So currently, I'm still working for Technical Transformation Services, but I will move to the Cloud Competence, like I said, the Cloud Enterprise Solutions, which has to do everything with your cloud journey. And everything around cloud. Within Atos, we have a top-class migration specialist. That's the team that I'm driving. The core of the team is based in the Netherlands, but like I said, we have offshore resources as well. So we're covered 7 by 24 hours in a week. You can always reach us, and our goal is to migrate that IT with minimum impact on your business. So we want to do it as seamlessly and as fast as possible without interfering with your business. Before those customers will come to us with their cloud migrations, there are some triggers. You can find these everywhere. What we mainly see is that they want to move to the cloud because their data center contracts expire. You know, data centers are quite expensive to have. Those contracts expire, they will look for new opportunities, and then the question comes, why don't we move to the cloud? Acquisitions, so companies take over each other, they want to merge their IT together, and they just want to move it to the cloud in one environment. The urgent need of capacity is also quite a valid one. You can rapidly expand your IT environment using cloud, especially nowadays with the hybrid cloud models. Your software and hardware refresh, it's a bit related to the data center contracts. If your hardware is expired as well, you have to close new contracts or they're not supported anymore. So why don't you get rid of all this hassle and move your IT to the cloud? Same applies to the software, which is one of the drivers still why a lot of customers will migrate their IT to Azure. As you know, that the Windows 2008 OS is no longer supported, but you can get extended support if you migrate it to Azure. So that applies a little bit to this question. Application innovation, delivering your applications faster. Cloud is global coverage. It's just easy to deliver your application. It's always reachable. Your compliance, so your GDPR. This also affects one of our customers. They ask us to move their IT even between cloud environments based on the current regulation. And these regulations, they change like every year. So we already had customers where we moved their IT to the cloud in one country and then even moved it back to another cloud or back on premise. And security threats. So if you're into the cloud, you're a bit more protected as you are a global community in the cloud, and you have all the benefits of your cloud protection. Today we're going to talk about Platespin Migrate. It's one of the tools of the portfolio of the Micro Focus software. I've been using it quite some while. I think I've been using it since 2007. And actually I was the second certified Platespin server analyst within Atos. And basically, Joe, I think I had the training from one of your mentors as well, or the teacher that trained me. You trained him again, so Joe and I go back for a long time as well. You might want to explain Platespin Migrate tool a little bit.
Yes, thank you, Stefan. Now, Platespin Migrate is what we call a server workload migration solution. And every time when I need to explain to someone what a server workload migration solution is, then I discovered that the first thing you need to usually explain is what a server workload is. Now, for the remainder of the presentation, I'm just going to use the word workload, right? So whenever I say workload, I actually mean the server workload. And maybe you think, well, you know, the server workload, that's the same thing as a server, right? The server is a workload and a workload is a server. If you want to stay high level, then usually you can equate the two. But you know, as soon as you want to like dive a little bit deeper, and especially when you want to do troubleshooting, it is really good to know the difference between a server and a workload. So I don't need to define a server. I think we all know what a server is. It's a collection of hardware that can be physical or virtual, of course, right? CPUs, RAM, whatnot, BIOS. But what is a workload, right? A workload, and I'm first going to give a definition that's a little bit wrong, and then I'm going to correct it later. For a workload, we can say a workload is everything that is installed on the server. And you can see it visualized on the right slide here, on the right side of the slide, in that those three layers in the middle. Because if you think of it, what is installed on a server? It is, of course, the OS, right? Stands for operating system. And in the Platespin world, the operating system has to be Windows or Linux. Those are the only two that we support for migration. So let's say a Windows or a Linux. Then on top of the operating system, you have applications, middleware, whatnot. And then at the outer layer, you see the data. So all the data that resides on the data volumes. And this is where I said that my definition is a little bit wrong to start with, because of course data is not installed, right? Data is generated by the application. So if we want to tweak that definition a little bit, then we can say that a workload is essentially all the blocks that reside on the data volumes, on the volumes of the server, and that contain either, you know, code for the OS, code for the applications, or data. And I use the word blocks on purpose, because we really replicate at the block level, right? That is the level below the file system layer that Platespin works in to migrate the workload to into another server, right? So again, what is the correct definition of a workload? It's all the blocks that reside on the volumes of a server, and that either contain the OS, the applications, or the data. Sometimes when I have to do Platespin training, I also use the analogy of a glass and the water, where the glass is the container, so that is the server in our case, and the water is the workload. And when we migrate a server to a new target platform, then we actually don't migrate the glass. The glass is recreated on the target side, right? So that is the server. We actually recreate the server on the target side, virtual, of course. And then what we migrate is the water in the glass. So we copy the water over into that new glass that we created on the target side. Nevertheless, you often will hear the words server migration to describe this type of migration. Other names that are often used are rehosting, or of course, workload migration. So server migration, workload migration, rehosting, these are all kind of, you know, the same, they're different names for the same thing. But in essence, remember that the server and the workload are two different things, and that Platespin recreates a server on the target side, and then move the workload. So all the blocks that reside on the volumes of that source server. Now, this is a really nice way to migrate applications, right? Because in the end, no one wants to migrate a server, right? What you really want to migrate are applications. That is the end goal. You want to migrate an application to a new platform. And the nice thing about moving the servers is that you stay in the operational layer. You don't need to touch the application itself. You don't need to re-platform. You don't need to refactor anything. You just rehost things, right? And this is possible because the application follows the servers. If I can give like a simple example, you may have like a web shop that runs on, let's say there's 2 web servers, then there's 2 application servers that those web servers talk to, and then you have a database at the bottom. So those 5 servers, they bring that application alive. So I think we all understand that if you migrate those 5 servers to a new platform, that the application automatically follows those 5 servers, right? So that is in essence what Platespin does. It's basically application migration by rehosting the workloads that reside on servers. That is the correct definition. And now you're probably wondering, okay, to and from which platforms can Platespin migrate these workloads? Well, you can also see it in the diagram on the right, in the outer layer. We can migrate to and from AWS, Azure, and VMware vSphere. Those are the main platforms that we focus on here. And if we go to the next slide, Stefan, now we can see like on the left side of the slide, we see all the permutations that we cover. And we actually use cool little acronyms to describe these permutations. We say, oh, it's a V2V migration, or it's a C2V, or it's a C2C, right? Where V2V, of course, stands for virtual to virtual. And maybe you wonder, well, why would you do that, right? Because that's from VMware to VMware. Well, one example is that a customer may have a very, very old VMware environment, and they want to migrate immediately to a brand new, cutting edge, the latest version of VMware. Sometimes that migration path is not supported, or if they want to follow the migration path, they have to go through 3, 4, 5 steps to reach their final destination. Now, a simpler way of doing this is by simply using Platespin to move the servers from that very, very old VMware platform to the very, very new one. And because right now you know that on the target side, we actually recreate the server. We recreate the server with the very latest hardware version for VMware, and then we pump the content, so the workload, over into that server, right? So we can bypass that whole painful upgrade path that you may want to have to go through. Virtual to cloud, I don't need to explain that. I think this is the very popular thing that is still going on right now. So moving from a virtual platform to either Amazon or AWS in our case. But of course, sometimes customers go to the cloud and then they realize, well, it wasn't a really good idea, or like for some reason they don't want to stay there. Then they can bring those workloads back with Platespin to their on-premises environment, right? So we support from AWS and from Azure to VMware just as well. And then of course you can also do cloud to cloud. And there are a couple of scenarios where you would use it to go from Azure to Azure or from AWS to AWS. That's very niche if you want, but for sure you can use it to move between the clouds, right? So if you want to go from Azure to AWS or from AWS to Azure, Platespin can perfectly do that. Now, I'm considering this little dive into Platespin as a little training. And in our training, we always also talk about what Platespin cannot do. And this is also very important, right? If we go to a customer, we want to enable everyone to, right from the bat, know, yeah, this is something that Platespin can do. We can help this customer. Or no, this is something that Platespin, Platespin just isn't the right tool for, right? And then you just walk away so that the customer, so that no one loses time and unnecessary effort. So what can Platespin not do? Platespin does not migrate just applications to another operating system. And what does that mean? Because of course you think, well, you just said that applications are installed on the OS. Yes, right? If the application is part of the workload, then we are going to migrate those blocks that contain that application just like all the other blocks. But Platespin isn't aware that this block contains an application, this block is data, this block is the rest. No, it just moves all the blocks over. So yes, if you migrate the whole workload, the application will of course follow that's installed there. But what I'm talking about in that first bullet point there is that there are some tools out there that can, for instance, Cocoon, a SQL server, pick up the SQL server and move it to another operating system, right? Or it can like pick up a container and move that container to another server. Those are examples of things that Platespin doesn't do, right? The unit of migration for Platespin is really that workload, and it has to stay together. So that's why we say we don't migrate just the applications. Now also, like I just told you how we migrate, right? We migrate the blocks. We said at a very, very low level in the whole stack, below the file system layer. So when I say that we also don't upgrade the OS or the application, it's probably also not going to be a surprise for you, right? Because in essence, we're moving the blocks to that target server. So it is technically not possible to do an in-band. Well, never say it's impossible, but it would probably be very, very hard. But in any way, Platespin doesn't do it. Because again, we migrate all these blocks and we don't know if this block is REST, this block is application, this block is data. So we don't upgrade the OS and we don't upgrade the application. Now, that doesn't mean that we just create a like-for-like copy at the target, right? We first very much do that, we create that like-for-like copy, but then at the final stage of the migration, you can of course tweak that target, right? You can make the target join the new domain, you can give it a new host name, you can change the IP address if you want, you can change lots and lots of things, but I would call those things configurations, right? They are post-migration configurations. Those we very much do support, but we don't upgrade, right? If it's Windows 2012, it is still going to be a Windows 2012 on the target side, right? If the application that is in there is SQL Server, I don't know, 2008, then it will still be SQL Server 2008 after the migration. The fourth point, data migrations, also very logical, right? You cannot migrate just the data with Platespin. Again, if the data is part of the workload, then yes, because it just follows the whole workload. But you always have to include with Platespin the boot volume, right? You in Windows speak, you have to migrate the C drive. All the other drives, all the other volumes, they're optional. And you can check in our UI if you want to migrate them or not. It's completely optional. But the C drive, that's obligatory. So while you can while you can leave the data and just migrate the OS, you cannot do the inverse. You cannot migrate just the data and leave the OS at the source side. No, you always have to have something that can boot at the target side, right? So the OS volume has to come along. So in the Linux world, this would be /root and /boot. They always have to be part of the, well, and probably there's some stuff in /var as well. Basically anything that you need for your server to correctly boot, you need to include in the migration. The last two, send migrations and hypervisor upgrade, yeah, we also don't do those. So that's kind of the most important thing to know for this slide. Now, overall, I think that the concept of a server workload migration, is fairly straightforward now for you guys, right? So the concept is simple, but make no mistake, especially for larger projects, there is a lot more involved than just doing the migration, than just throwing the server to the new platform and running away, so to say. No, there's a lot of work involved. You need to start with a discovery, right? Very often customers don't know what servers they have running. So the first phase is always defining what is in scope, right? Doing like a discovery sweep and then going over all the servers and say, yeah, is this part of the migration or not? Is it in scope or not? Then once you have your scope defined, you have to go and define the dependencies. Well, not define, you have to map them, you have to discover them. And the dependencies between servers, let me explain that with that example that I used earlier, right? Where you had the web app, the web shop, that basically was running on 5 servers, so 2 web servers at the top, then in the middle layer 2 application servers, and then 1 database at the bottom. So you have those 5 servers. Those 4 at the top, so the web servers and the application servers, they depend on that database, right? So if we don't discover our dependencies correctly and we migrate just that database to the other side, then we completely break the application, because the application servers, they wouldn't find their database anymore. So all those kinds of dependencies between servers, they have to be discovered as well. They have to be mapped. And then from there, you can then define your project plan. You can create a timeline where you're going to define what servers you're going to do first, what servers you're going to do next, what servers you're going to do last. You're going to create waves, you're going to create batches, you're going to model those dependencies. Then when that is done, then you're going to execute the migrations. And that is where Platespin comes in, just to do the migration itself. But then when the migration is done, then there is post-migration acceptance tests that need to be performed. You need to go talk to the business. They need to test the application for performance, for security, whatnot. Maybe if a bad decision was made, the application needs to be migrated back to on-premise. So that's a whole area of consideration as well. Now, all those things that I just explained, right, except when I said the migration, but all the other things that I explained, those are things that Platespin doesn't do. Platespin just does the migration. But this is exactly where an experienced partner like Atos will step in and provide customers with that complete end-to-end package, so that, at the end of the ride, you don't have a big mess, but you have a successful migration of all the application that you want to migrate. We've done this several times. Collaborated together, and Stefan is going to give a couple of examples in the next part of this presentation of like real customer scenarios where we successfully migrated applications to clouds, to new virtual platforms, and whatnot. So this is in a nutshell what Platespin does. Now on the next slide, I've just provided a couple of links for those who want to get started with the product, who want to see what the product does. At the top, you can see that's a link to our Platespin Migrate product page, where you can just find like the usual description of the product. And under normal circumstances, you would also find a button there that says free trial. And when you click that button, you can generate your own trial license for Platespin. And that trial license is valid for 30 days, and you can do 3 migrations with it, right? Which is very nice to play with the product and get to know the product. But why did I say under normal circumstances? Because we are actually in the middle of a shift to a new platform. This is all internal stuff, but a result of that shift is that button is temporarily not available on our website at the moment. It can take a couple of days, maybe a couple of weeks, I don't know at this point. But if you want to do some playing around with the product in the meantime, not to worry, just send us an email. Like at the end of this presentation, you will see our email addresses. So if you want a trial license, just shoot us an email, and then what we will do is we will shoot you the URL that button normally links to. And if you follow that URL, you will generate a trial license just as if you would have done it on our site. So just shoot us a mail, and you will get the URL. I promise this is not part of lead generation. That's normally what the button does. Yeah, this is just like a temporary thing where we have to send you the link over email directly. But again, that trial license allows you to activate the product and do a couple of trial migrations. But of course, to do that, you need some additional information as well. And that brings us to the second link, Platespin Migrate, the resources page. So what you find there are success stories in PDF form. Many of them are with Atos. So if you want to read up a little bit on those stories, just go there. You also find there white papers, technical white papers. And I've singled out one white paper here. It's called, you can see it in the sub-bullet. It's called Keep Running Windows and SQL Server 2008 with Platespin Migrate. Now, why am I singling out that one? Because as we all know, last year, Microsoft ended support for SQL Server 2008 and Windows Server 2008. So in essence, customers can no longer run they can still run them, but you don't receive security patches anymore. So it's just a bad idea to still run those systems. Now, Microsoft did provide an exception, right? You still can receive security patches for those platforms for, I believe, 3 more years. if you migrate them or if you run them on Azure or Azure Stack. So if you run Windows Server 2008 on Azure Stack or Azure, you still get 3 years of security patches. So you can basically extend your lifetime while you're working on like another solution to later migrate away from that platform. So this is great news, but of course, let's suppose those servers are not running, and most of them will not be running on Azure or Azure Stack, of course. So how do you get them on there? Again, this is something where Platespin is the perfect tool to do this. So you can basically pick up the workload and drop it on either Azure or Azure Stack. Very easy to do with Platespin, and yeah, as a result, you can keep running those platforms for another 3 years with security patches. And this is a nice opportunity because there's still a lot of Windows 2008 out there, right? I've seen some slides with numbers. The amount of 2008 that is still running out there, it's huge, right? So a lot of customers are looking for a solution there. Okay, then you also need to download the product. That is the third main bullet on this slide here. So if you click on that link, you will go to our download site. You will see a search input field. You just type in there migrate or Platespin, and then click search or find, and then you will see it at the top of the search list. You will see the latest version of Platespin. You download it, and basically then you install it, and then when you hit it on the web URL, it will ask you for that trial activation code. You just enter the code, and then you can start doing migrations. Now, quick note, if you're planning to play around with the migration to Azure or to AWS, then you actually don't need to install the product because we have ready-to-go templates in Azure and AWS, right, in the respective marketplaces. So if you want to play around with migrating to Azure, just go to the Azure Marketplace, search on Platespin migrate, you'll find it, just provision the server. Same thing on AWS. On AWS, we use CloudFormation templates, so you just within 10 minutes that you get a server generated that has all the software installed, that is ready to go, and that is pre-configured, right? Because if you follow the harder way of installing it yourself, then of course, if I take AWS as the example, you have to create the right security groups to keep things safe. So you need to open the right ports for the migration. Again, it's not rocket science, but you have to do it. Otherwise, either your server is unsafe, or if the ports are not open, then the migration doesn't work. But if you use our marketplace image, then all of that has been done for you. Like, we automatically generate the security groups and whatnot. So you can, whenever I have to do a product demo, I use one of the clouds, right? Because it's just so easy to quickly spin up a server and do a quick migration. Yeah, just a last quick note, jumping back to that 2008 story. One thing I forgot to mention is that, of course, Atos has a lot of experience here as well, right? So with Atos, we have been moving things to Azure or Azure Stack. So this is one of the things that that Stefan will talk about in the second part of the presentation. And then the last two links are, as you can read on the slide here, there YouTube movies of a short demo that we recorded. So they're 7 or 8 minutes, so very short, and they show you what the migration process looks like at a high level when you walk through the project screens. It's of course super simple. There's just like a certain workflow that you click through. So if you want to see what the product looks like, just click on one of those two links there, depending on your preferred platform, and you will see that. Okay, that's in a nutshell my story. Thank you very much, Stefan, for giving me the opportunity to talk about Platespin. Because that's thank you so much.
Okay, thanks, Joe. Yeah, we've been quite gained some experience together with Platespin, and we've become quite creative. Let me talk you a little bit about our joint venture. Why are we working together? Yeah, we have an excellent track history. Joe already mentioned it. We have done dozens of projects, small ones, big ones, to Azure, to AWS, to VMware. We've done it all. We have used the tool to its fullest extent. And all those projects were really successful for Atos and Micro Focus. Because we work together, the product enhancements, we have a close relationship with the support team from Micro Focus. So whenever we need some new enhancements or some new features, or we might find a little bug or something, we just call Micro Focus. Yeah, and they will enhance the product in the next release, which is really a benefit. So I don't have to go through all kinds of layers of the company. I just go directly to the support team and they will respond directly. That means that if I make a request, I will get instant support. That instant support will help me fix my problem. If it is something that needs to be enhanced in the next tool, most of the time I will be supplied an emergency patch. And in the next release, I think they have 3 or 4 releases a year, that issue is solved. So from request to support, development and product release is in 3 months. So we're facing some issues, in the next release it's gone. And that's really a benefit, how we work together. Our experts, like Joe said, we have a lot of experience with Platespin and large migration projects. Yeah, we work together with the project management. Joe De Beer and Jason Blackett are from product management. All those emails and contacts are at the end of the slide. So please reach out to them if you have any questions for Micro Focus. I mean, we migrated already 10,000 of workloads in the last decade. I think that's something really nice to mention. It can be projects where we just migrated 2 servers. It can be projects where we migrated over 5,000 workloads to the cloud, all around the globe. Yeah, we have partnerships. So Atos has partnerships with all the public cloud providers, but Micro Focus as well. And by having this, we have also direct access to the support of those cloud providers. And we all work together to make these migration projects successful. We are gold partner from Micro Focus. So if you need anything like licensing or tool or help or whatever, just reach out to us or reach out to Micro Focus. We will bring each other in contact and we will help you out. And because we've gained so many successes, so thanks again for that, Rashid, that we are gained Partner of the Year by Micro Focus, by all the work that we've done together. But by building this relationship, you can really see that the Atos knows the customers, because I'm really directly talking to customers. I'm at their site. We know what's going on there. I need to know what to do. I ask Micro Focus, hey, you guys have the tooling, help me out, and together we know the market. Why do we choose Platespin? It's already in the header, and that's giving the biggest clue away. It's just one tool to migrate them all. So Joe already explained all the benefits and all the options. So the C2C, the V2C, the C2V. It's just one tool to migrate all those workloads. And why do we choose it? It's easy to deploy. You just download the product, you install it on a server, and you're good to go. If you go into AWS or Azure, you have this quick start deployment scripts. Joe explained, with these scripts, you can just roll out a complete environment with all the software within 10 minutes. You add a license and you're good to go, as long as your server is connected to the network. And you can migrate within a few clicks. If you once the software has been installed, it's just a few clicks. You need to know some details about your source workload. Basically, that's the server in scope that you want to migrate. And you need to know some details about your target environment. You just create a migration jobs in a few clicks. Ability to migrate to various regions in AWS. So if you have a Platespin server deployed in AWS, you can migrate to multiple regions as long as you have those different accounts. But besides going to multiple regions in AWS, you can also configure that Platespin server to migrate to Azure or to migrate to VMware, vCenter, ESXi hosts, Azure. So all those targets can be defined in your Platespin server, and with just this one central placed migrate server, you can move your workloads around between your cloud, your on-premise, your VMware. You can go to AWS. From AWS, you can go to Azure. And like I said, with the GDPR, we had a customer where we moved, I think, around 150 servers to AWS. And a year later, the local regulations, the country regulations were changed, and we needed to move those workloads back to on-premise. And we just used the same Platespin server, which we installed a year before. As long as it is connected to your network, you can just move those workloads around. One of the biggest advantages of the tool for Atos is that we don't need any management access on your current mode of operations. So if a company takes over another one and the incumbent is not so willing to cooperate, or it's managed by another company, we don't need to have any management access. We just need a local account on that server, and with that, Platespin is able to migrate your workload. Again, of course, as long as it is network connected, but we don't need any vCenter access. We don't need any AWS access. If your server is running in AWS, just give us a local administrator account on that server, and we can just pull it out for you and place it anywhere you like. Widely spread of supported workloads. So by each release, more workloads will be added. Most common versions of Linux and Windows are supported. It's a proven enterprise technology. Like I said, already been using it since 2007. I've seen evolving the product by each year. It's proven technology. The flexibility of your target configuration. Like I said, we recreate your target machine, your target server. That's from the outside, so we can change the amount of CPUs, disks, RAM, stuff like that. But you can also change your host name or your IP addresses and stuff like that. So you're really flexible in how you want to migrate your workload. Most of the time, these DC transformations or migration projects, they combine a lot of changes. So if you go to a cloud, most of the time, or like I said, 99% of the time, your IP will change. This is all handled by the tool. If you want to change the host name within your OS or the administrative name in AWS or on VMware, you can just use the tool for that. So all those flexibility of your configuration, and believe me, we are really creative by using these options. We can almost migrate any workload for you. Like I said, the support, including the partnerships they have, it's a word for asset. It was proven before. And the last one is quite catchy. The pricing is very competitive, or even less compared to other tools. So there is a license fee involved in here. But if I see at the ease of effort, the easy to deploy, the ease of use of the tool, that's really worth investing a little bit in about the license. When you create a migration job, every value you add in, every option you tick the boxes, they're all going to be pre-checked before you can submit your job. So you cannot submit a job that's not complete, or if there's errors in there. By doing so, it's just easy. If you create your job and the migrate button lights up, then you know that your migration job is successful. I want to talk a little bit why we use migrate for AWS. Like I said, we have a AWS community within Atos, and the tool is chosen of one of the enterprise migration tooling. So we're using multiple tools, and Platespin is one of them. It's the most used one because of the ease of the effort and the success rate. Easy to deploy, those quick start scripts. You can deploy your Platespin environment within an existing VPC, or you can add a new VPC. So that's quite an advantage. There's widely spread knowledge of AWS and the Platespin migrate tooling. Like I said, it's on the market for so many years. A lot of Atos resources already know the tool, so the knowledge is widely spread. I migrate to AWS, I can, with one migrate server, I can run around 30 simultaneously replications. That's also quite a benefit. So I create an initial job, and that's where the most of the data transfer will be, of course. And later on, it will just transfer those deltas. I will tell you a little bit more about that later. But by doing so, I can migrate 30 servers simultaneously. And if they're only replications, so if it's only delta replications, I can even add more. And like I said, with the quick start deployment scripts, it's just easy to roll out an extra Platespin server. Use of the BBT driver, like Joe said, we are moving blocks. There's a special block-based driver. It ensures our seamless migration. So it will only migrate the delta, and it will keep real track of your changed blocks and only migrate those ones. So it doesn't compare your target and your source all the time. It will just keep track of those changes and will only migrate them. And by doing so, you can reduce your cutover time to minimum, because it's only the last delta, especially when you create a migration schedule or a replication schedule, your last sync will be on to minimum. Those automatically scheduled replications, once you created your job and the migrate button has lit up, you can just create a schedule, go to bed, and the next day your server is going to be replicated. This one is also quite advantage. There's the ability to do a test cutover. So if you have run your initial copy, you have run several incremental replications, you are able to do a test cutover. And by doing the test cutover, it will guarantee you 100% success rate of your migration. It's like a pre-cutover, and you can mark it successful or not successful if you want to roll it back. But by doing so, you can confirm to your customer that this migration will guarantee succeed. Of course, it will give you an automatically matched size of your source configuration. So the Platespin migrate server will read out your source workload, and based on that data, it will give you an estimate in which size and which AMI size your workload is going to land on AWS. So this index size is going to be matched automatically. Of course, everything that's automatically can also be overruled manually. So if you want to have a greater size or a smaller size, it has to fit, of course. If you then you're just able to overrule that and go to a larger size. You can configure each job individual, or you can use templates. But by using individual jobs, you're really flexible how to use the tool. And the last one, it just works. It's as simple as that. I've used many tools, but it just works. And if not, I would just call Joe, or would just call one of the other Micro Focus guys to help me out. And the next day I have a successful migration. But like I said, if you have created a migration job and those buttons lit up, you're just guaranteed of a successful migration. I want to talk a little bit about the projects that we've done. I'm not going to highlight them in detail, all of them. We'll just go quickly over them because we're running a little bit out of time. But we're busy in almost all the areas that you see on the screen here, and I want to highlight a few of them. One is a large Dutch multinational company in the Netherlands. It has a cloud-first program where they want to move those workloads to Amazon, to AWS. And the fun thing here is it's a global company, and they have a lot of remote sites, and they do a lot of acquisitions of other companies. And by using the Amazon and by using the Platespin tool, we are quite easy to embed those old environments into the Amazon cloud. So we have deployed several Platespin migrate servers in a central place on the network. And when there's a new remote location, we just connect it to the core network. The Platespin migrate is able to see it, and we can just migrate those servers. So we can just empty those remote locations quite easily. We've done it together with Micro Focus. Program run for 1.5 years. The successor of the program is currently running, and The third program is already starting at the moment. So you can see that the customer is quite satisfied here. And asking Atos and Micro Focus to keep on helping them with their migrations. Why they choose Atos? Because of our experience and successes and our global presence. We are available around the clock. Here we have the option to deploy migrate server and connect it to multiple target platforms. So we're going to AWS and we go to VMware. And at VMware are environments like a DC in a box, which is a small local data center appliance that we ship towards the remote location if we cannot close it. It's just running VMware, so we can migrate to that environment, but we can also run to the global data center, which is also running VMware. Or, like I said, the Cloud First program, of course, we migrated to Amazon. So in here you can see the benefit of the multiple targets you can define in the tooling. Yeah, and we closed almost 140 data centers in 50 countries, 4,200 servers in scope. Yeah, we saved a lot of money for this customer. So this customer was quite happy, and that's why we are getting the future programs as well. The next one is about the digital private cloud, which is a private cloud environment from Atos. This assurance company in the UK, they ask us to move the IT from the incumbent to the digital private cloud. And in here, there's also the option to get the premium support of Micro Focus engaged. I think if you want to know more about premium support, you can just contact the Micro Focus resources. But basically, they're just available 24 hours a day, and they will respond within 5 minutes. As you can understand, that an insurance company has a lot of security, and there were also some quite large, complex applications that needed a minimum downtime. And to be really successful, yeah, we asked premium support. Hey guys, can you help us out? That's why we joined on this project. Yeah, that chooses, of course, because of our successes for earlier migrations. And here, one of the major reasons why we choose Platespin, because we didn't need any CMO management access. The incumbent was not willing to gain us any access on their management layer. So no vCenter accounts, stuff like that. So we were able to use a local administrator account, or at least an account that has sufficient privileges. Easy to deploy because we had to use multiple Platespin servers here because of the security. Not all the environments were connected to each other, and we could gain some quick results. 5,000 servers in scope, 1,600 were migrated with Platespin Migrate, and here we combined the tool with storage migration. If you need to know more about that, please contact Atos later on that. And that's where the flexibility of the tool comes up. So the Platespin Migrate is not the solution itself, it's part of your solution. So most of the time, a DC transformation or migration is a combination of multiple migration methods and tools. For this customer, we used the Migrate tooling, but it was part of the method. And because the tool is so flexible, we were quite easily combine it with the other methods that we were using for this customer. And the results, yeah, it was fully operational and managed in the Atos Cloud. A little bit about Azure. We're also quite active on Azure. Like Joe said, the 2008 end of support is still one of the drivers for migrating to Azure. So Atos has an Azure cloud which is managed by Atos. Of course, it's Azure, but it's an MPC, so it's a managed private cloud. They asked me and my team to help out. I engaged Micro Focus. They supported us immediately, and together we were able to migrate those servers. And in here we also connected the migrate server to multiple DCs. So we had to empty multiple DCs, but we also needed to migrate to multiple DCs and the Azure. And here, yeah, like I said, just a few migrate servers, and we're able to connect all those environments and to migrate them all. 3,000 servers were in scope, and the business case for this customer is that one of their infras, they needed to scale up to support 1 million orders a year, which on the CMO was not possible due to capacity strains, and that's why they moved to Azure. And the last one I want to talk is just a basic VMware migration. But in here, that's where the BBT driver was a key to success. With using this driver, like I said, you install it on your source workload. It keeps track of the change blocks. We put all the servers in sync. We're over 300 servers. We put them in sync. We ran them in batches. And we were able to migrate those 300 servers on a relatively small bandwidth on the network, because like I said, the big data chunk is on your initial migration. If you schedule them automatically during a schedule, you're going to divide your load on the network, and later it's only the delta changes. With this schedule, we were able to use this minimum bandwidth that was given to us. And we migrated the cutover. The migration itself was done in a one big bang scenario during the weekend, and that's where we migrated 300 migrations within 10 hours. So that's I think that's quite a success. The project closed within 3 months. All the servers were migrated. There were a lot of physical servers. We turned them virtual with the tool. We also needed to migrate a lot of Microsoft clusters, which is always a bit more effort, but the tool proved to be the key to success. It was quite easily to do so. I have one more slide that I would like to show you. It's a new initiative of Atos. It's called the One Cloud. It's combining a unique set of 10 offerings. Please type in Atos One Cloud in Google. You will find out all the white papers, all the press releases. It's a big initiative. It basically comes down is that any cloud question you have, or migration, orchestration, automation, whatever, edge computing, security, decarbonization, it's all embedded in the One Cloud solution. Please have a look. It's quite interesting. It's going to run for at least 5 years. I think it's one of the most interesting things I've seen from Atos for the last few years. So please have a look at the One Cloud offering. And that's basically it. So I would like to thank you all. I would like to thank Vivid and Micro Focus to make this webinar possible. And then I would like to give the word back to the presenter. And I'm not sure who it's going to be.
Yes, we have just about a minute. So Marcel, if you could quickly maybe ask the speakers a couple of the questions from the audience, and we'll wrap up for everyone here.
Yeah, okay. So we have a couple of questions, but we only have a minute to go. So let's move quickly. So one of the questions is this typically seen as a good first step for migrations to the cloud? Maybe you can comment a bit on why this is a good first step and what the next steps are. It's a question from Keith Wilson.
Yeah, so it really is. Like I said, easy to deploy, easy to use, and you start from migrating in workload. And once you've done that, you can scale up your project and then start looking at applications. So there are two approaches. One is from a technical point of view, the bottom up. That's where you find your service that you need to migrate. And the other one is from application level. So you define your application and all the connected applications as well that you need to migrate as a batch. And feed those servers in the migrate tool, and you can start migrating them. but I think you should really just go to the product page of the Platespin tool, download the tool, use the quick deployment script, and already start migrating a server to your cloud. But it's really one of the most easiest and lowest entry tools there is to migrate your IT environment to the cloud. So that's correct, yeah.
Okay, thanks, Stefan.
Yeah.
So maybe one last question if we have the time. So it's a more generic question, and that is, what are the difficulties you are experiencing when moving to the cloud?
Yeah, I think that's for the audience, right? But for my personal, for my personal, I can tell you, I see a lot of customers fighting with their application owners because of the downtime that is involved. With Platespin, you can really minimize that. There's this test cutover functionality, so you can convince them with a success rate. And the other one I see customers fighting is to break down their IT landscape into migratable chunks. And that's where we can help you out as well. Because yeah, you can understand that if you migrate an application, you have to make sure you're not breaking another application, or you're not breaking that application itself. And I see a lot of customers that have a little bit of fear that they are breaking their IT environment. And if you need consulting or that, please reach out to Micro Focus or Atos. We can help you out on that. But that are two questions I see from customers.
Okay, thanks, Stefan.
Okay, perfect. And we'll just wrap up then. Thank you again so much for joining us today. We do want to invite you to check out any kind of future webinars and content on the Vivek community calendar. Go ahead and see what's relevant and register. You will receive the on-demand recording, slide deck, and the Q&A will be posted on our website here shortly within the next 24 hours. And you'll get an email with that link. So again, there's also, lastly, before you exit, or when you exit, you'll receive a pop-up survey. So if you would just, it's really quick, take a minute so that we can better serve you in the future, we'd really appreciate it. And we definitely appreciate Atos and Micro Focus sharing this information with our Vivek community. Have a great day, everyone.